Hello and welcome to this video, which is going to be 3 looks and swatches of the Realm of Fairies palette by BellaBeautéBar. I keep messing up the name, so I do apologize. I have a palette called Fairy Tale Fairies palette from Simply Posh Cosmetics, and the names just get confused in my head. But it looks like this. I have already talked fairly in depth in the other 2 looks I've done about what I think about the color story. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go get started, and I will try to leave timestamps in the description box so that if you want to flip forward to a different look or just to the swatches at the end, feel free to do that. Yeah, and we're gonna go ahead and scooch in. Okay, so here is our finished look. This did not go as planned, and as you can see, the finish, it did not go as planned. I had a lot of intentions, and none of them worked out, and I should always know not to try things I'm not the best at when I'm filming. And I don't have time to film another look for this video because I just don't want to. So this is a hobby. This is something I do for fun. And I have a lot of other things I would like to get to eventually. And I mentioned in another look that I don't typically use my palettes just the whole palette. I kind of mix and match them. And so while I really love this, I used the shade Will-O-The-Wisp. Really does kind of give like this neon blue shift, and it's very striking and beautiful. So I'm going to talk about what I have on the rest of my face first, just to kind of get that out of the way, because that'll be quicker. The first thing I did when I was done with my eyes is, because the tape I used, you can even still kind of see it, left a lot of like pink on my face. I am very, like, I have very, very sensitive skin. Like, if I just touch my skin, a lot of the times it leaves red splotches. So I should have known better than to use tape for a look that I intend to wear this out places. So that will eventually fade, but I did try to cover it up. First, I went in with my Fenty Beauty Pro Filter Soft Matte Powder Foundation. I have the shade 100. Yes, the shade 100. It's the lightest shade, because it has kind of a little bit of yellow, even though it's, I think, supposed to be neutral or cool toned. I think neutral maybe. It does have a little bit of yellow to it to kind of help cancel out the pink. And then over the top of that, because I wanted to make it look like the pink was on purpose, I did go into my Narimi Cicada palette, into these two shades, Belly Ring and Earrings, and I kind of just mixed those together as a blush. That's what I've been doing a lot recently, is using those shades as a blush. And I didn't go in quite as dark as I usually do when I use it, just because I wanted it to look more natural. I really wanted more of a cool toned look, and it just, you know, this is just it. Anyway, it's fine. And then I kind of blended all of that together, and with a little bit of my Besame loose powder in the shade Violet, I'm trying to pan this, so I just kind of use this whenever, and to kind of cool down the pink tinge of the blush to make it a little more cool toned. And then with highlighter, I used my BellaBeautéBar Noctilucent powder, and I used the shade Apparition, which is this kind of like blue iridescent multi-chrome shade. So it kind of looks like that. It's what I have on my cheeks, but it kind of is mixing with the eyeshadow a little bit. So there we have that. And then on my lips, this is the lipstick I wanted to use, which is why I tried my hardest to make the eye look, I wanted it to be like more pink purple, whereas a lot of the shades in this palette are more cool tone blue periwinkle purple. And I messed up by choosing Will-O-The-Wisps as the shade I was going to use, because I have not used it on the eyes yet, and I did not realize what an electric blue it is. So plans did get changed, but I did have intentions of using this lipstick in the shade Luna from Menagerie, so I didn't want to change my plans and have to pick out a different lipstick because I am lazy. So I did just kind of use the shade Will-O-The-Wisp on my lips. I just kind of patted that on lightly while the liquid lipstick was still wet, and I just kind of mushed it into the lipstick. And then over the top of that, I did use my Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb in the shade Diamond Milk. It's just kind of the white, clear, glittery one. And I just tapped that with my finger into the middle of my lips. I never put the doe foot of a lip gloss on my mouth. I always use my finger. Just because I don't like the doe foot to be dirty. So there is that. And then I think that's everything on that. So as far as the eye look, I did a lot. I did a lot more than I usually would have. It turned out very uneven. A lot of that is because I wanted to do more of like this wing. I cannot use liquid eyeliner. I am incapable. But my eyes also were very different shapes, and so putting on tape was a trial. I wasted a lot of tape doing that. Thus is why my cheeks are fairly pink at the moment. And it was a mess. Anyway, it was a mess. The shades were not blending well. I know a lot of the mess up of this look is operator error, so I am going to give the formula of the palette a free pass, even though I've used it in other looks, and these shades are kind of patchy. I am not going to lie, they are kind of patchy. They're kind of hard to work with. I don't mind as much since they're shades I prefer, especially like these three in this row here and then this pink one over here. I don't mind that they're patchy because they're light, and I'm always going to put a shimmer over a matte anyway, so it kind of always covers it up when it's messy. So for me personally, I don't mind that. But I will say I'm probably only going to be reaching into this palette for the shimmers. I do love the shimmers in this palette. I used 3 of them on my eyes, 4 of them on my eyes today. So as far as what I used on my eyes, let's see. First I went in with Periwinkle. It was that cool tone purple I put all over my lid and blended in. And then I mixed in Pixie Ring with it because I wanted it again to be that kind of pink purple tone. That's what I was going for originally. And then I did put down tape, and to start with I thought about lining with Weeping Willow, but it's really too light for what I wanted to go, and so I decided fuck it. I'll just go with this black, and this black kind of has some like glitter pressed into it, but unlike the one in the Vamp palette where the glitter kind of stays, this glitter doesn't. It just kind of, you can't see because I covered up the shimmers, but it poofs off into nothingness when it's blended. So this is Fatal Wishes, and it kind of has some like blue and purple. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if it's going to focus to see, but you'll see it in swatches. I didn't like it. I didn't like it, but because it's black matte, I had to go with it. And I do not like it. I do not like it. I will not be doing that again. It was just kind of one of those harebrained, spur of the moment things that sometimes I do, and I regret. I should have just used Foxglove, which I did then go back over the top with Foxglove, and I should have just used that to line my eyes like I usually do and do kind of like a faint wisp to the side. But I was thinking like, I want it to be a thick wing and it's going to be great, and it isn't. It isn't great. This does not look good. I do not like it. Because a lot of it, again, my eyes are not shaped the same. They are uneven. My eyebrows are also not shaped the same. They are uneven. So getting anything with a wing that extends too far out to look even, that is very like dark and defined like this. So like, see, you can see this one, it looks fine. This one does not. It looks chunky and strange. And again, it's just operator error. It's a mixture of things. So, that's my bad, but I'm just a normal person. I'm not pretending to be great and good at makeup. I can do makeup for myself. I can do natural makeup on other people most of the time. Like, you can even see, like, I have more here than it does not look good right now. I don't know, I might have to wash my face before I leave. I don't know. Anyway, that is not the palette's fault. That is my fault, so we're gonna move on. I did, again, use Foxglove. It's this very dark, black-based, purple multi-chrome that has a lot of pink and blue shifts in it. It's very beautiful. And then I used the shade Moonstone on the inner corner. This is a very, you can see it fall right out of the pan when I put my finger in it. It's a very flaky shade. It's very hard to work with. It's very hard to work with. I've tried different brushes. I've tried a lot of, that's the heat kicking on. I've tried a lot of different, that's funny. I've tried a lot of different ways of going about using this palette, or using Moonstone, and it does not work. The shade is beautiful, but it is so hard to use, especially where I want to use it, which is on the inner corner, but it is what it is. And then I went in with shade Will-O-The-Wisp, and I actually broke this shade, so I have to be very, very gentle with it. And it is, again, it's this very electric iridescent shade all over my eyes. And then lastly, I used the shade Illusions on the outer part, and then I went back in with Will-O-The-Wisp to kind of like pat towards it, and then a little bit over the top of it. And then I did use the brush I used to put the black on to kind of go back over it, and all it did was like push more of Moonstone into it, and so actually I kind of like the effect that it gives. But so we have Illusion, which is, I don't know, it's kind of more of an opaque version of Will-O-The-Wisps, honestly. Okay, so I did go ahead and put the swatches on this hand. So we have Foxglove, Moonstone, Will-O-The-Wisps, and Illusion, just for some context. So there we are, we have those, and you can kind of see some of the shifts. Like, they have a lot of shifts, but they all kind of have, I don't know, the same vibe. They all have definitely that same blue, purple, electric, especially these three here. Foxglove definitely is the unique one, among them being the darker base. So let's see. There we have that. You can definitely see the flips of those. And Will-O-The-Wisp and Moonstone are both very beautiful, but you do see they have the exact same shift to them. Here they look exactly the same, so that is interesting. Here they don't really, but there they do. And I really thought Illusion would be more similar, but it doesn't really seem to shift quite the same. Maybe that's just the lighting in here, because on the eye it definitely reads similar. But you can also see Will-O-The-Wisp has a very iridescent base, because you can see where those matte shades did not blend and are kind of muddy underneath it. Like, and when I turn my head, you don't notice it as much. I mean, maybe you don't, but I do. Yeah, so I don't know that I think it's not setting on my eye well. Maybe it's already, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to blame anything that goes wrong in this look on the palette this time. I'm going to blame myself because I messed up a lot. But I do think that that's interesting to see that it seems like it might already be settling into the lines in my eye, maybe. But anyway, I don't know. I think it's interesting that all of these shades are like so close, and especially like the shifts. That's just, I don't know how I feel about that. We'll see. I will see what happens. I still haven't swatched this palette. I think I might I might use it a couple more times with other palettes before I swatch it. So anyway, I hope you liked this, and I hope you'll continue on to see more looks. Hello, welcome to this look in the video using the BellaBeautéBar Realm of Fairies palette. So this is not my first time using this palette. I have dipped into it mostly for the shimmers a handful of times at this point. I have been meaning to film those, but I don't typically just reach into one palette when I do makeup looks. I reach into several, and I like, mix and match a lot of the times. So filming these videos kind of forces me to use my makeup in a way that I wouldn't naturally use it. And I've been filming some looks for a few other videos, and I just kind of, I don't know, like I haven't wanted to do a dedicated look with just this palette, but I decided that today was probably the time to do it. This is, at first glance, a very monochromatic palette, but honestly, especially like when we get to the swatch portion of the video, I think you'll be able to see there's a lot of like variance in this, even though it's all in the realm of like periwinkle, lavender, blue, purple shades. It's not a monochromatic palette, even though it kind of has that vibe. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we are at the finished look of the finished look, everything all together. I'm sorry for the atrocious lighting. I have kept trying to fix it. I have no idea what is different outside of, I think I have different light bulbs. I had to replace the ones that I use in the lamp that I use in this room, and I just think that maybe they're the wrong color. I don't know. Maybe it's the wrong wattage. I have no idea. Something is off with the lighting, obviously, though. But here is our finished look. I really like this. I like this palette. Now, the matte shades are kind of patchy. I will not lie. They are not the best, but I do think it works better in especially these two that I used here. So I used Periwinkle and Silver Mist, and towards the end I used Weeping Willow, this one down here. I do think it works better with these since they're like lighter shades, whereas in the other palette I've been using from this brand recently, the Vamp palette, the mattes in it are much darker and more pigmented, and so the patchiness is a lot more noticeable and irritating for me. That's just, you know, personal. Here, let's try putting the camera here. That's just personal preference for me. And the shimmers in this one are a lot more special and beautiful to me. Not to compare the two palettes because they are two very different palettes, but I just think that this is, I don't know, I am a lot more willing to be forgiving to a palette that has similar issues if I prefer the color story and the colors in the palette, because I'm having the same issues with the Realm of Fairies palette that I had with the Vamp palette, and yet it's a lot easier for me to overlook them and forgive them because I prefer the colors and just everything about this palette overall. Nothing wrong with the Vamp palette. It's just that, you know, I guess just to be transparent that those issues are there. But I spent my money on both palettes, and it doesn't bother me as much in this palette that the matte shadows are a little patchy and kind of hard to blend as it did in the Vamp palette, where it was very frustrating and I didn't want to reach for the palette. I don't want to reach for that palette. I am contemplating depotting it, or at least taking the shades out of it that I might want. I haven't decided what I'm doing with it yet. And this video is about this palette, but I do kind of want to, I guess, just let you as the viewer know that if I talk about this palette differently, even though you see me struggling with it similarly to how I did the Vamp palette, it's just because I am a person and I have personal biases specifically to color stories. I'm excited to reach for this color story. I like reaching for this color story. I shouldn't have bought the Vamp palette. It was kind of a last minute purchase and I just shouldn't have, you know? We live and we learn, but that isn't to say this doesn't have similar issues. I just think that if you like a color story or you enjoy a palette, you're a lot more likely to make it work and not grumble as much, you know, because while these matte shadows definitely are not the most opaque and definitely do stick to the creases and the drier patches on my eyelids, I do not mind that as much with this palette. And you could see that I struggled a lot with the shade Periwinkle, really sticking into the creases in my eyelids. I have very creasy hooded eyelids, so that is, you know, that's a thing that happens. But I don't mind it as much with this. So I used those three mattes. I used, of course, Periwinkle in the outer eyelid, and then I kind of blended it and then built it up so it was a little bit darker of a color. And then I used Silver Mist to blend out the edges. I put a lot of Silver Mist all along the bottom part of my eye, on the inner corner, and up through like the top by my brow bone. And then after I put on all the shimmers, I did use Weeping Willow, which is this kind of more like grayish purple shade. I did put it on the outer corner just to kind of deepen it up, and you can kind of see where, you know, that was placed. And I kind of I don't know if I regret doing that or not. I was trying to bring back some more purple to the look because the shimmer I used, Frigeria, is that how you say that? Maybe, I don't know. I probably should have looked that up. My bad. But Frigeria leans a lot more blue than I remembered it leaning. But of course, I was using it with colors from other palettes the last time I used it, so it could just be how it was behaving with those. So the first shimmer I did use was Frigeria, which is this very beautiful multi-chrome. It reminds me a lot of the Cosmos from Terra Moons. That was one of my very favorite single shades. I still have it floating around somewhere. But it's kind of like this silvery blue periwinkle purple shade with a lot of reflect, a lot of color reflex, a lot of pink and silver and blue and purple of various shades. It has that very strong like silver in it. It has a lot of like glitter. It's just a very beautiful shade. And then I used Moonstone on the inner corner, and it's a very, it's super flaky, and it's kind of hard to use. I hadn't used it before today, and it's kind of like this white-based iridescent multi-chrome. It's very thick and flaky, and it has this very strong, teal blue shift, and you can see, the base of it, it's kind of almost like this vanilla orangey yellow, and then it has that really strong, blue teal flash to it. And I don't know, it kind of looks hot purple, where I'm looking at it. I'll get the mirror out, maybe. We'll try and manipulate it. See, you can kind of see, the purple and, the electric, neon-ness of that shade there on my finger. And then the last shade I used was Foxglove, which is this dark, like black-based multi-chrome, and it is beautiful. It's very smooth feeling, but it also has a little bit of flake to it. You can kind of see like the texture there on my finger, and I'm gonna put it probably right here. Be easiest. I kind of got those. But you see it's very black-based, and it has this dark purple shade to it with a lot of like pink and teal and silver glitter in it. It's very beautiful. There you can see more of like the pink and the blue and the purple reflex in it there on my finger. Okay, so I'm gonna wipe my fingers off. Okay, so there we go. You can definitely see more of the reflex in that middle shade. Okay. All right, so yeah, that's what I have on my eyes. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about what I have on the rest of my face, because as far as like, I don't know, I like this look. This is a very me look. This is what I prefer wearing. I've made versions of this look using basically every palette in my collection. If you've seen any of my videos, you'll know I tend to almost always reach for purple shades first. In any palette, that's just kind of my good, like a good litmus test for myself of if I'm gonna like the palette, if I can make a purple look I enjoy with the palette. And this one definitely hits. Like, this is one of the most beautiful looks I think I've made in a long time. And I don't mean that like disparagingly towards the other palettes I've been using in the last few months. It's just that I've gotten several new palettes I'm trying to use and or do these videos for. I really wanted this year to, I wanted to last year, but I didn't have the time or the energy to do kind of a, like, you know, several looks and swatch video of every palette in my collection. And it takes a lot of time because then you have to do, like I said in the beginning of this look, dedicated looks with every palette, and that's just not how I use my palette collection. For one, I tend to use one of my Blend Bunny palettes or my Narini palettes for the mattes, and then I reach for my Electrum palettes for shimmers. Sometimes I reach for some of the other palettes for shimmers, just, you know, change things up. But that's basically how I've been doing my makeup lately, or I was before the last couple of months where I've been trying to do these videos. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about what I have on the rest of my face. I don't have very much stuff. I don't tend to do a lot of like foundation, and I'm having, I don't know, like I do have some breakout here on my chin, but like I don't a lot of other places, and I only try to use foundation when I have a lot of like breakouts and stuff, because I don't like the way foundation looks or feels on my skin very much. That's just personal preference. But regardless, I am using my Rare Beauty highlighter in the shade in Lighten. I am pretty much almost done with this. It keeps just breaking more and more every time I use it. So I am fixing to replace this because this is my favorite highlighter in my collection. It's what I'm looking for in a highlighter. I don't know what to say other than it's very good, and I will be repurchasing this. And then I have mascara on. Oh, this one, the Lash Princess mascara, the pink one. If I ever forget to say what mascara I'm wearing in a look, it's this one. These days, this is the only mascara I have. I do still have some of my Besame cream mascara, but it's just very wet for what I'm going for these days, and kind of like takes a long time to build up. So I'm not reaching for it that much. And I like how this makes my lashes look. I have very like naturally curly and dark lashes, so they don't really need that much extra help. So this is good for me. And then on my lips, I have a variety of things. So I am using this Prada lipstick, and I still have no idea what shade it's in. It's one of their soft matte lipsticks. I don't know what shade this is in. I think maybe something like Tupelo. I don't know. But I have it on my lips, and I kind of used my finger to blur it out. And then I lined my lips with this pencil from the Glamlight and Barbie collection. It's this kind of like dark mauve shade. Just to give my lips some more like definition. I have relatively small lips, so you know, a little bit of volume to them is fine. And I kind of slightly overlined, especially like on the corners and the underside of the bottom lip, and then over like the top of that in the middle of my lips, I dabbed a little bit of this Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb in the shade Fenty Glow. So this is like the original. I've had this since this shade came out. This is my original gloss from the original launch, and that is very old, but it still smells good. And I did have one of these go off that was much younger than this. It was one of the cream ones, I think. So none of my ones with glitter in them have gone off, but the cream one I had did, and it went off really quickly. I didn't have it very long, but that's what I have on the center of my lips, and that's it. That's the look. I was a lot more chatty in this than I think I intended to be, but yeah, I had a lot of thoughts. Probably edit some of them out, maybe. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying working with and using this palette. And so I'll probably do a couple more looks. I don't know if I'm going to try to use every shade in the palette like I have in a few of the other videos I'm doing. Just because while there's a lot of variety to be had in this palette, I do think what I'm going to be drawn to doing with the shades are going to be very same, which is probably pretty much a variation of this look. So I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone for probably 2 more looks, but I'm not going to do 4 looks. I'm probably just going to do 3 for this video. So this is the first in 3 looks. I will do my best to put timestamps down in the description box, and I will see you in the next part of the video. Bye. Hello and welcome. This is another look in this video using the BellaBeautéBar Realm of Fairies palette. And today I actually have a look I wanted to do. There's a shade in here called Silver Mist. I am assuming, especially with the color for the Disney fairies from like the Tinkerbell books and shows and whatever, Silver Mist. And I'm going to do a look inspired by that. I found a couple really cute collages on Pinterest that actually gave me the idea. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to scooch in a little bit and we're going to get started. Hey, welcome back. Here we have our finished look. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I already have, what else I have on my face, and then we'll get into the swatches of the shadows that I used. So the first thing I did is I went in with my Cicada palette from Narimi. This is the all matte palette that they have, and I used these two shades as a blush. First I laid down Belly Ring, which is kind of like the darker, more like mauve pink, and then I used Earrings, which is the lighter baby pink, to kind of blend it out a little more. So you can see here the darker part where I put Belly Ring kind of in this hollow part of my cheek here on the outside of my cheekbone, and then just blended it out with Earrings. And then over that I used my Kaleidos Space Age highlighter in the shade Moon Cruiser. It's kind of like this blue purple iridescent one. Mine has a little bit of hard pan here in the center, but it still picks up fine with a brush, so it's no big deal to me anyway. And then over the top of that I patted some of my Fenty Beauty Diamond Bomb and How Many Carats. It's just iridescent glitter. And then as for my lips, I put down a little bit of this lipstick from Melt in the shade Judith. It's this concealer lips essentially color, and I put it in the center. And then because I've been trying to do like ombre lips a lot more recently, I just feel like it makes my lips look fuller than they are, so I did line that with this lip pencil from Glamlight. This is from the Barbie collection. I don't know, it doesn't have a shade name, it's just the pink one from the Barbie collection. And then I just kind of mushed my lips together to blend the lipstick in the lip liner, and then over the top of that I patted the Fenty Gloss Bomb in Diamond Milk with my finger just over the top of that. I didn't really blend it in or mush it. I put a little of it on my finger and just tapped it onto my lips. As far as my eyes, and the mascara I used as always is this one from Essence, the Lash Princess Curl and Volume Mascara, the pink one. It's the one I use all the time these days. So, and then Realm of Fairies palette. I feel like this look turned out really well, especially for the inspiration I was going for. I only used 4 shadows, I think. Yeah, 2 mattes and 2 shimmers. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about what I used. I did use this shade Silver Mist all in my crease, and I just kind of built it up there. It's, for such a light shade, it builds really well, which, I mean, granted I have very pale skin, but it didn't just blend into my skin like I was afraid it would. It blended really well, so I was really impressed with it. And then on my bottom lash line, I went in with the shade Winter Woods and just put a little bit just on my bottom lash line, and then I used Silver Mist to kind of blend that out. And then I added a little bit of more, you know, I kind of went back and forth with both until I kind of have this, I don't know, what is it, like a faux wing? I mean, it is a wing, but it's not like I used liner to do that. I just kind of built the eyeshadow up until it did it on its own. And then I went on the inner part of my mobile lid with the shade Moonstone, and I kind of like, it's a very, very, like, here, you can see in the pan how like thick and flaky that is. Here, you can really see how thick it is. And of course I put it on the inner part and then on the mobile lid, and then kind of, you know, blended it up. I just used my fingers to blend it. So here we have that. And this is a very beautiful iridescent multi-chrome shade. It is called Moonstone, and it very much reminds me of like a moonstone or an opal, because it has kind of like that flat, like orangey peachy base with a lot of like flip to it, and it has a very strong like electric blue flip. It has some pink in it, some teal and green and purple. You can kind of see that in it. It's a very beautiful shade. but it is very hard to work with because of how thick and flaky it is. It doesn't hardly work well on a brush. I keep trying to use it on a brush and it doesn't pick up on a brush hardly at all. And flakes do get everywhere. You saw that they were kind of falling all over my cheeks and stuff. I would even go as far as to say it's probably, you know, blended in with the highlighter I used. So it's a very beautiful shade, but very hard to work with. And then on the outer portion of my eyelid, because I wanted some depth, and I don't know that it worked very well, and I didn't like it that much, so I did cover it back up some with Moonstone, and that was Reflection, which is this really smooth shimmer. It does also kind of have some thickness, some flakiness to it, but nowhere near what Moonstone does. So go ahead and put that here. And it's kind of like a silvery shade, like very much also has that electric blue shift to it. Not quite as shifty and sparkly as Moonstone, but they're very similar. It does, you can see, have that kind of like gray silver base to it. But it's also a very beautiful dynamic shade. It's just that I think that they're too similar to each other for Reflection to really have like the depth I was hoping it would add. And I didn't want to mess my look up by adding any of the other colors because they all lean kind of more purple or like darker, or like even this one over here, Illusion. I swatched it on my hand. I swatched it in Reflection to decide which one I wanted to use, and this one has a lot of purple in it, and I did not want hardly any purple for this look. I really just wanted it to be a blue look. So that's why I chose Reflection. You can't really tell that it's there. I did go ahead and use a brush to put it over like the bottom lash line. But honestly, I think on the eye, you really can't tell the two apart. Outside of it does look a little thicker here on the outside of my eyelid where I put Reflection. So, like, you can't even hardly see it other than it did, like, make the eyeshadow itself look thicker. It didn't really change the color or the depth or anything. So, yeah, I don't know that those two shades have a whole lot of variance in them, at least on my eyelids. You know, maybe with a shade, like a matte shade underneath them, you could see a difference. I might play around with that some later, but as for right now, I'm kind of disappointed because while you can see these, why they do look different in the swatches, at least somewhat, I think that the differences are subtle enough it's not really going to matter unless, again, they might make a difference depending on what's underneath them. And since I don't really have anything underneath them but that really light blue shade Silver Mist, there's just not enough of a difference on the eye. And I don't know on many people that there will be much of a difference on the eye, truth be told. So I don't know, like, that is something that I have not run into with Bella Beauty Bar before, the shimmers kind of, I don't know, being here. And this is after I kind of wiped it with the baby wipe a little bit. You can see there's definitely, I don't know, definitely a difference. I just think that the difference is really subtle. And on the eye, honestly, I really couldn't tell the difference at all, which is why I just kind of covered Reflectance back up with Moonstone, because it just, you know, it wasn't giving what I wanted it to do, which was basically nothing. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'll play around with it more. I'm sure that it's just a me thing, probably. And it's not a big enough deal. You know, I still really like this palette. I'm still enjoying using it. I feel like I hit my inspiration spot on. And yeah, I'll see you in the next look. Hello and welcome to what is actually the fourth and final look I will be doing with the Realm of Fairies palette from Bella Beauty Bar. This is in collaboration with SassyFairie. I don't know that I have said that at all in this video, but this is a collaboration palette. I am doing a fourth look. I did 3. I only intended to do 3. It is actually now February. I did all of the other 3 looks I filmed throughout the month of January. And I don't feel like the other looks really encapsulate how diverse this palette can be. So I am going to do one final look. I did do my swatches earlier today already, so I already have my nighttime moisturizer on my face. This isn't a look I'll be wearing. I am doing a look just for video. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I think I'm just gonna do kind of a recreation of a look I have done with this palette a couple other times, except the other looks I've done, I have dipped into mainly the I've used other palettes in conjunction with this for the look I'm going to do. But today I'm going to try to do that look with just this palette. So I'm going to go ahead and scooch in and we'll get started. Okay, so here we have our finished look, and I was transparent in the beginning about having moisturizer on my face because you saw on the bottom lash line and then here at the top, and I have, you know, I worked with the baby wipe and then some more to cover that. But it's a lot more pigmented, obviously with a base of some kind. So the patchiness I keep experiencing, the low opacity, definitely would be better if I used an eyeshadow primer. My stance on that is if the eyeshadow doesn't work as it comes in the packaging, it isn't that good of a quality, because I have eyeshadows I do not have to finesse that come in a similar or less expensive price point to BellaBeautéBar. And again, nobody is buying indie makeup for the mattes. So we're here for the shimmers, obviously. So first I'm going to go over what I have on my eyes, then I'll go over what's on the rest of my face, and then somewhere in there we're going to do the swatches because I only used 2 shimmers on my eyes today. So I wanted to do a very pink look, obviously, so I used this very mauvey pink purple shade in Pixie Ring, and I had to use like quite a lot of it. You can see it's kind of hard pressed into the pan. And it's not a very buildable eyeshadow, so it did take a long time to get it where I wanted it to be. But it did eventually happen. So then on top of that, I did put Frigeria or Frigeria. I still don't know how to pronounce that, and I looked it up, and it was confusing because it seems to be conflicting. But it's this very beautiful multi-chrome. I have compared it to the Cosmos from Terra Moons. If I knew where that eyeshadow was in my collection, I would swatch them next to each other, but I have it somewhere that I haven't been able to find it. So we have Frigeria here, which is a very cool icy like periwinkle with a lot of pink and gold and mauve tones in it. It also has like maybe the slightest bit of orange to it. And then on the inner corner, I used Reflection, which is a lot easier to use than Moonstone, and it kind of gives, it kind of gives that same effect. It has a very light, almost translucent silvery base, and then the strong silvery blue teal shift to it. It has a lot of beautiful glitter in it. It's just a very pretty shade. And then on the bottom lash line, I did use Foxglove, which is this black-based purple multi-chrome. A little bit. And you see it has a lot of pink glitter in it. And almost, pink and silver glitter. And then that really dark base with that strong purple and almost electric blue flash to it. So there we have that. Let me find my mirror and we'll do some. I keep doing it on the wrong hand. I need to do these on the other hand, but in any case, I think you're going to be able to see the shifts of those shades just fine. There. Okay, so then what I did is I did go back in with Weeping Willow on the bottom lash line to kind of blend out Foxglove. I think I might have put it down maybe first. I don't remember at the moment. But I did use Weeping Willow also on the bottom lash line. And then I went back over everything with Pixie Ring to bring out a lot of the pink in Frigeria. So yeah. That is what we did. I did, again, use a baby wipe to kind of clean up the edges, where it was very obvious that the moisturizer I put on my face was making the matte shades stick a lot better to those points, so it looked kind of weird. But I cleaned it up, covered it up, and I did go back in after I put on mascara because I didn't like... Again, I have hooded eyes, and where I had put so much of the matte shade, it wasn't really shimmery on the top, so I did go in with some more Frigeria and use my fingers to kind of like just pat it up the middle on both sides. So, yeah, I think that is everything I used in the palette. So, again, very, very pink look. I don't think I have done a video using... There is a couple of like darker gray tones. So like we have Changeling, which is kind of a navy, like gray tinged blue, and then Grickstone, which is a straight up just light gray color. I don't think I've used those on camera, which, my bad. I don't know, looking at them, I have used them at all. I think I might have used Changeling, but I may be thinking of Winter Woods. It's a little bit more of a blue tone than Changeling is. So again, this palette does have a lot of versatility and variety with the matte shades. I will say after using this palette several times, there isn't a lot of diversity in the shimmers, but that's something I cover in the swatches. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I have on the rest of my face, and then we're going to go, next up is swatches. So I wanted to keep the look kind of pink, so I went in with my Narini Cicada palette, as I have been doing a lot recently. But this time I used just the shade Belly Ring, which is kind of this darker pink. And these are eyeshadows, so they are a whole lot more pigmented than your typical blush would be. And so I put a little bit too much on. I did, and I did not like that. So I hadn't really intended to do any more than blush and highlighter. But I did go in with my Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte Powder Foundation in the shade 100. And I just used a stippling brush to put some of that on top of it. And then of course I used my Besame translucent powder in the shade Violet. I am trying to pan this. I've almost finished it, but it's very hard to use a loose powder. And I just kind of put that everywhere on my face, as I typically do. And then I went in, of course, the highlighter I used is my Rare Beauty highlighter in the shade Enlighten. I am almost completely done with this. Oh, pieces keep falling out. And I have intentions of repurchasing this when I finish it, but this is my favorite highlighter. And it's just a great highlighter. And then the lipstick I am using is the shade Luna from Menagerie. This is one of my favorite colors in my collection. I have worn it several times. I actually had intended to do kind of a pink look. I think it's the first look in this video. And this is more what I was going for. It, of course, did not end up going in that direction. So this lipstick, then, of course, I used with this look since I was finally doing the pinky mauve look I wanted. And over the top of that, I did tap on some of my Fenty Beauty Gloss Bomb. And I believe that this is the original in Fenty Glow. It doesn't have the sticker on the bottom anymore, but I'm pretty sure that this is Fenty Glow. So yeah, that is our finished look. I do think that this is probably my favorite look I have done using this palette, which is kind of sad because I have nowhere to wear it, but I think I'm going to wear it around my house for a couple of hours while I do, chores or whatever. So yeah, anyway, I hope you liked this, and I will see you in the swatch part of the video. Okay, welcome to the swatch part of the video using the Realm of Fairies palette from BellaBeautéBar and SassyFairie. I think most of the parts of this video I have forgotten to say this is a collaboration with SassyFairie, who I believe is a content creator on Instagram. So the inside of the palette looks like this. Up here by the mirror it says, "Careful where you wander." And then we have, of course, our 15 pan shadow here. It is magnetic pans, which I do appreciate. I do like magnetic pans. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm going to move the palette to the side, of course, and I'm going to start at the top here with the matte shade Silver Mist, which is this very light pastel blue. And then we have Changeling, which is a dark navy gray. Like, it does not swatch very well. I have not actually used this shade yet, though, but it is a very dark, like, slate gray with a tinge of, like, navy blue to it. And then we have the shade Pixie Ring, which is this pink, purple, mauve shade. As you can see, these shades, they don't swatch very well, and they are a little bit difficult to use on the eyes as well. All right, there we have those three. Next, we have Periwinkle, which is this kind of periwinkle purpley blue shade. Then we have Brickstone, which is a light gray color. And it also has almost a tinge of like teal blue to it. Kind of the same as Changeling. It is a gray, but it is slightly more blue gray. And then we have Winter Woods, which is this dark peacock blue. That's what I would call it. And it does blend. When it blends out, it has like a slight green teal tinge to it. You can see it kind of has a slight sheen to it, almost like cream to matte formulas do, but I wouldn't necessarily call it that. It is a lot easier to work with, in my opinion, than a cream to matte formula, but it does have, again, that slight sheen to it, like it's almost more than a matte. I mean, you can see kind of these two are mattes, and this one is a little bit different than that. And then the last two we have are Weeping Willow, which is a gray purple. Again, kind of patchy, a little hard to build up to true opacity, but it is my favorite matte shade in the palette. I will say that. I've used it to blend out other shades several times, and it does work well in that. And then we have Fatal Wishes, which is this black matte with glitter pressed into it, and the glitter, it's blue and teal, and it is really pretty, but as you can like kind of tell on the finger, the glitter does not translate onto the eyes really at all. It kind of just blends away. There's a shade similar to this in the Vamp palette, and the glitter in the Vamp palette, in the sequin shade in it, doesn't blend away, but in this one, I can't see it on the eyes really at all. And it also has like a slight sheen to it, and it's kind of that similar weird texture that Winter Woods is. So there we have that. So from the top to the bottom, we have Silver Mist, Changeling, Pixie Ring, Periwinkle, Brickstone, Winter Woods, Weeping Willow, and Fatal Wishes. Okay, so now we are going to do swatches of our shimmers. So I'm actually going to do this a little bit different because there are several shades that are quite similar, and I want to swatch those beside each other. So the ones that aren't is this one on the bottom, Delphinium, which is a very, very smooth feeling, black-based multi-chrome. This one is absolutely stunning. It is this dark blue and purple shifting, like very beautiful shifting shade. It has a lot of teal. You can see that really strong teal reflect. It has a lot of beautiful like shine and shimmer to it. And it's very smooth. It's a very nice dark multi-chrome. And we have Foxglove, which is slightly more textured, a little bit scratchy feeling, but still a beautiful black-based multi-chrome. And it has this purple with a strong pink shift to it. It has a lot more glitter particles to it too than Delphinium does. It has a lot of, again, blue and teal and pink and purple shifts. I would say it's a little bit more dynamic of a shade than Delphinium, but I think I prefer personally Delphinium just because of how smooth it is. It's just a beautiful blue shade. And then we have, of course, Fragaria, which is this light icy blue based, like silvery and pink and peach and gold and purple multi-chrome, also very beautiful. I will say in terms of truly special shades, this far outshines the Vamp palette specifically. It's just, these shades alone are beautiful. So there we have those. Okay, and now on to some of these other ones. Specifically, first we have Moonstone, which to me is one of the most disappointing shades in this palette because it is so thick and flaky. It is very hard to work with. It does not go onto the eyes well at all. And it's kind of like this orangey peach-based multi-chrome, like an iridescent multi-chrome with a lot of flips of pink and blue, purple, teal. It is, again, it's very, very beautiful. It has kind of like this electric flash to it. We also have Will-O-the-Wisp, which is also flaky, but slightly more, it's easier to work with, in my opinion. And it has more of a like purpley blue base with a lot of like glitter reflect and particles in it. You can see it compared to Moonstone here. It is more of a holochrome, I would say, too, because of all of the multitude of glitters. It has a lot of green and orange and red glitter in it. It has green, too, and that very strong electric blue purple flash. We have Illusion, which, again, is a very beautiful iridescent multichrome. And it also has a lot of glitter particles in it. And you can see it and Will-O-the-Wisp are very similar. They have the same kind of glitter reflex. They have the same kind of base tone. Like, the only real difference is the color in them. Will-O-the-Wisp is slightly more blue, while Illusion is a little darker, like of a blue, silvery gray. But they have the same glitters throughout them. They have that same electric blue flash. Reflection might be slightly more teal, while Will-O-the-Wisp is slightly more purple blue. But they're very, very similar nonetheless. Next, and I believe last, honestly, is Reflection, which is kind of has a similar, like, silvery purple blue base to it that Frigeria does. So I'm going to swatch it up here by it. They're not very similar outside of that, but they do have that same kind of silver base. Whereas you can see with Reflection that it also, like these other shades down here, has a very strong neon blue shift to it. It does have more, again, of that silver base. It has a lot of like blue and silver glitter, but you can also see it has some teal and green glitter in it as well. So yes, while again it is different, it has a lot of similarities with these other three down here, albeit it is a little more unique than those three. And these three do have very different shifts to them. I will say Moonstone and Illusion have very similar shifts to them. Here, actually, I'm going to swatch Moonstone again down here, just so you can kind of see that. Similarity. Moonstone is a lot more of a like glittery and dynamic shade, but Illusion does have, I don't know, they have the same shift. It's the same. It's giving same. And that is ultimately my issue with this palette, is that yes, these shades are beautiful, but when I am paying a premium price for indie shadows that are supposed to be unique and beautiful, they need to at least be unique and beautiful to each other. Because on the eyes, and you can see I have done 4 looks, and 3 of them turned out very similar because I was using these 4 shades, and these 4 shades have that very similar neon flash, which looks very similar on the eyes. Yes, they're different. You can tell that they're different, but in my opinion, of, you know, yes, I want all the pretty shiny things, but do I want all the pretty shiny things that are only slightly different in the same palette? No, I don't, because that means every look I do with this palette is going to turn out very similarly, which is what I have ran into with this palette. Yes, it does have variety in shade tone and color, specifically with the matte shades, but this is an indie palette that has special shades. I want to be able to use the special shades and have variety there as well. And I really don't. They have the same shift. I had a similar issue with the Flower Moon palette from Inslee Rain. All of the shimmers have the exact same shift, which means on the eye they're going to be fairly indistinguishable from each other. And these ones are. I mean, I've used Moonstone with Illusion, with Reflection and Illusion both. And, you know, even with Will-O-the-Wisp, it is so similar to Illusion that you can't tell them apart on the eyes, because you're going to be making a look using them all on the eye. Could you probably tell them apart? I mean, yeah, if you were looking close enough, but who's going to be looking that close to your eyes to tell? And from a distance, in a picture, even in the videos I did, they're just very much the same. And that is my biggest complaint with this palette, is that the mattes are fine, but they're not great. And honestly, the shimmers are not that unique from each other, and they're not, which makes them not that special. And that's very disappointing for me, because I think this palette's like $60 or something. And that's a lot of money to spend on a palette where I'm just kind of disappointed and don't really want to reach for it, even in conjunction with other palettes, because what in here am I going to reach for? What in here is unique to what I already own? Delphinium is a beautiful color, but that's a very common multichrome. Like, you can find this blue-purple deep tone multichrome a lot of places. I mean, even Frigeria, I mean, I have a multichrome from another indie brand that's almost exactly the same as this one. It reminds me of it every time I use this one. I think of Cosmos from Terra Moons. Even, with all these neon shifting shades, I already have palettes that have, blue, teal, turquoisey, neon shifting shades. It's just, it's beautiful, but I don't know. I wanted something a lot more unique to my collection than this has brought me. And I'm disappointed, because I have 4 other palettes from this brand, from BellaBeautéBar, and the first 3 I bought are fairly beautiful and unique, not just to my collection, but on the market, period. And honestly, I don't feel like this is, maybe, as a color story, but if you have a few indie palettes, I don't know that this is a palette you need. And I am actually going to pull out some of my other palettes here in a second and just show you, because maybe you have those other palettes too, and you're drawn in by this color story, but you don't realize you already have something similar. So I am going to do that here in a minute. But first we're going to turn off the lights so you can see these. Again, from the top to the bottom, we have Delphinium, Foxglove, Frigeria, Reflection, Moonstone, Will-O-the-Wisp, and Illusion, and then again Moonstone. All right, I'm going to turn off some of the lights. Okay, so I turned off all the lights except for the camera light on the phone. So you can see the shifts of those a little bit better. You can see the base tones of these are all very like orangey peach, which is very interesting. This one, which is Illusion, doesn't really have a base pigment, so it's just kind of like, it's the exact same as Will-O-the-Wisp, except without the base pigment. And you can see that Illusion and Moonstone have pretty much an indistinguishable flash of that neon turquoisey blue. And then up here we have Reflection, which does seem a little more unique to the other shades, but it still has that same kind of almost blue, teal, turquoisey flash to it. Okay, so when keeping in mind that some of these palettes I'm going to show you are either discontinued, this isn't for the purpose of giving comp palettes to buy instead. This is just kind of doing what I need to start doing. If maybe you have this color story already, or maybe you have the elements of this palette you really like and enjoy already in your collection, so you don't need to go out and buy this palette necessarily unless there's just something about it that really, really draws you in. Because I wouldn't even say this is the best formula BellaBeautéBar has to offer. I would say if you're looking for the best color story, the best time with a BellaBeautéBar palette, I would definitely suggest the Recently De-Influenced or the Basic Witch palette. Those two are definitely standouts in my entire collection, not just in the catalog of BellaBeautéBar. So the first palette, of course, that comes to mind with this color story is the Cosmic Brushes or Cosmic Beauty Winter Wonderland palette. And now I am not the biggest fan of their eyeshadow formula, but I do find it a lot better than the formula, especially of the mattes in this. And you do have quite a variety of more unique shimmers that kind of still give the same feel. Again, this isn't an exact dupe by any means, but it is the same vibes. This has purple, it has green and teal, it has blue, it has darker blues and purples. It even has, you know, some of those periwinkle vibes. You are not going to get that very strong electric shift though, but there are a couple of very beautiful shimmery shades. Wonderland and Frost are beautiful. Winter Solstice is a good shifty shade, even though it kind of has some, you know, orange and blue. It's very similar to Frigeria. Here, let's just... Now, Frigeria obviously is a little bit more like glittery and opaque, but I do think Winter Solstice could be very, you know, comparable on the eyes, or again, you know, if that's just something in the realm of what you're looking for. Another good palette would also be the Color of Rain from Gloss Gods. I don't know if this is still available. Again, this is just if you already have palettes like these. And I already have palettes like this. So this has a lot of those beautiful shifty shades. I mean, these are far more beautiful and dynamic than these for sure. I love Gloss Gods shimmer formula. It is stunning, and they have a lot of these teals and purples. Again, that I think are very similar. I think Drizzling and Frigeria probably also are very similar. Yeah. So this is Drizzling and this is Frigeria. Very, very similar. I think even like Raindrop and Rain Cloud has that kind of electric blue shift to it. Some of these other shades do. So yes, if you already, again, if that's what you're looking for is the shimmers in this, maybe you already have that in this form. And it also has a black with some, you know, and this is a far more workable black in my mind than this. So, you know, that is something to consider. Also, Rogue from Fantasy Cosmetica. Again, this is more similar vibes, but you do have this shimmer that has that very strong electric flip to it. So, you know, again, maybe that's something you already have. And how many multi-chrome, shimmer, iridescent shades do you need that have that exact same flip when you put it over other shadows? Is probably just going to give the same basic idea. You know, see, that's even similar to this shade from the Color of Rain palette. And it has, of course, then some of these darker shades. It has some mauves, like, you know, this and this could be fairly indistinguishable. It has, you know, some of these darker colors, and this, you know, has a green. But it also has kind of this like gray, blue, slate color, darker, you know, blue. It's very similar. This is a lot more of a compact color story, but honestly, this color story could probably be condensed down a lot, especially since, again, so many of the shimmers are similar. It's Freakin' Bats, which is from Shroud and Bella, or Butte Bean. I believe she used to be Batty Bean, or she is Batty Bean now and was Butte Bean. Anyway, it's a creator here on YouTube. Again, this is a little bit more of a grungy color story with some of these pops of color, but it does have these two very beautiful shimmer shades. Again, Zero has kind of this electric flip to it as well. It is a little bit more of like a flat, it's not quite as extra sparkly, but I do think that it is similar enough. Again, this palette overall is fairly different, but I do think that it is similar enough that, you know, maybe you already have that. The same with Mercury Retrograde from Huda Beauty. We're kind of getting into some palettes that are a little bit more not even far-fetched, but I mean, what looks are you going to create with this palette that you can't also probably create something similar with this palette, especially if you use these shades on top, or this shade again that has a very strong kind of neon shift to it. It even has, again, this similar kind of mauve. You can create a lot of similar looks with this palette that you can create with this palette. The Celestial Witch from Electrum, again, if you want a special shade, I recommend Electrum. They're just amazing. So we have Mystical, which again is very similar to Frigeria. Again, those could be almost dupes for each other. They are so similar. It has Cosmos, which has, again, this kind of electric flash to it. This one does have more of like a purple base, but I just think that that makes it a lot prettier. And then you have Cosmic Power, which kind of has this electric green shift to it. Also very beautiful. Spellcaster also. And then these are some palettes I've actually decluttered. So the Fairy Tale Fairies palette from Simply Posh. This is the one I keep accidentally saying the same name of, is this one. It has this shade Enchanted that also has that kind of electric flash to it. Wishes, which again could be very similar to Frigeria. There. It does have a lot more green to it, but I do think, you know, especially if you just cut it down to like that, those two rows alone could give you probably a fair amount of the looks you would be creating with this palette. And then again, the last two are palettes that I have decluttered, I just haven't gotten rid of yet. And this is by no means saying buy from this brand, but maybe you already own palettes from this brand like I do, and you, unlike me, you don't want to get rid of yours. So here I have the Midwinter Dream palette from Inslee Rain. This is in collaboration with Brittany Huffman. This palette, again, very similar. So we have Kione, which again, very similar to Frigeria. We have, you know, several of these other shades like Boreas, which also has that very electric blue tinge to it. You know, a lot of these shades do. The mattes also, again, very similar. Even Winter Solstice is the same kind of like sequin matte. This one does have more like pink and orange, whereas this one has blue, but the sequins also buff out of this one. You also have, again, NYX, which has that very, again, kind of electric shift to it. Probably a little bit more similar to Moonstone than Will-o'-the-Wisps and Illusion. But it's, you know, it's there. So, again, maybe this is a palette you have, so maybe you don't need this one. And then the one that, especially all of the very same electric blue kind of shifting shades makes me think of is the Flower Moon palette from the same brand. And every shade up here pretty much has that exact same electric blue shift to it. You know, all of the, they're the same. It's the same. It's the same. You know, you see all of these shades, yes, are different enough when swatched. I mean, these ones aren't, obviously. All of those are pretty similar. but are they going to be different enough on the eyes? Again, I think that's something to strongly consider. So, at the end of the day, is this a palette that I personally would recommend? I mean, again, I think just like with the Vamp palette, if it's a palette you're interested in, I think that it's fine. But I also think that there are... I think BellaBeautéBar has better palettes in their catalog, as well as there's just better versions of this color story or individual shades out there. And again, maybe you already have those in. If you do not already have these in your collection, this could be the palette for you. I do think, especially if you use an eyeshadow based, the mattes aren't going to be near as patchy as you saw them in this video. My goal is to do nothing extra, just the palette, because mostly that's how I like to use my shades. I don't like, my palettes. I don't like having to, I don't like having to use a bunch of extra steps in my routine. You know, when I'm doing my makeup, I don't have an hour to do my makeup all the time. Sometimes I only have 10 or 15 minutes, and I want my eyeshadows to blend and work well for me in the amount of time I have. And these ones, I mean, they're not the worst, but I definitely will not be reaching for these mattes over ones and other palettes that I have, again, that you saw that are kind of similar to these. So, I don't know, overall this was kind of a fail, which is very, very disappointing because that is 2 out of the 2 palettes that I got for myself as kind of like a Christmas, New Year's gift. From the same brand in the same order that just are kind of busts, that they're just, you know, I don't really like them. I really would have preferred to know what I do now and to have not bought them. To be completely honest, I have them in my collection, so I will continue to use them, but I don't know that they're gonna stay the same, I think, because they're magnetic. I may depot them at some point, so the next time you see this palette specifically, it might not look like this anymore, but I am going to keep using it and, you know, working with it. I specifically really love the shade Frigeria. I think it is beautiful, and Delphinium is just, it is one of the best lower lash line colors. I really, really like it. And even Foxglove is beautiful. So I will continue to reach for shades in this palette, but I don't know. I don't know that this palette was a win for me. Again, disappointing because I haven't really bought a lot of new eyeshadows in the last few months, and 2 of the ones I have being complete, mostly complete, like, fails when I consider how much money I spent on them, how much time I've spent getting to know them when I could have been using palettes I already know I like. You know, this just feels like a sunk cost to me at this point. But maybe it wouldn't be for you. Maybe you liked the looks I did. Maybe this is completely unique to your collection. Maybe you don't have any other comparable eyeshadows. And in that case, I say, you know, it isn't bad. It is a good palette. It just isn't the right palette for me personally. So, you know, this isn't me saying it's bad. It's just, you know, there are definitely some pitfalls to it that I do not prefer. And for me, Helen, this was not a good purchasing decision. And I really hate that because I really expected to just head over heels love this palette and it be my new favorite BellaBeautéBar palette. You know, I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. I don't just have a lot of money to throw away on makeup. And I have been trying to be a lot more thoughtful in my purchases. The Vamp palette notwithstanding, that really was just a last minute, I shouldn't have got it. This one though, I really wanted it. I loved it from the moment I saw it, and I expected to love it, and I don't. It's disappointing. But anyway, that is the end of this video. I hope this was helpful for you. You know, if anything, it gave you some perspective from somebody who just uses makeup amateurly. You know, I'm not a makeup artist. I don't have the greatest makeup skills, but I do try to be fairly transparent and honest about how I feel. And yeah, so that is the end of this video. If you liked it, please let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, you know, come back for more. I intend to do several more videos. I have several palettes in my collection. I would like to do videos. This is the last new one I think I have, or like, you know, newly released palette, new to my collection palette, but there are several more I intend to do videos like this with, specifically some of my Narimi palettes. So yeah, anyway, if you would like to see more videos like this, subscribe, stick around for more, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.